Mike Abbott, City Manager.
John Weddleton.
Eric Croft.
Pete Peterson.
Forrest Dunbar.
Ernie Hall.
Come on over.
Here again, some project management engineering. Steve Schmidt, your project management engineering.
Matt Silver, Office of Management and Budget.
Thank you.
Just before we start, I don't know if it's an issue, but I do own a business on Spenard Road. I've been very, very involved with the details of this for over probably close to 20 years, and I want to make sure, is there any conflict?
Thank you, Ms. Middleton. I don't believe there is a conflict, so we're going to continue with this work session. So thank you. Mr. Smith, are you going to? Mr. Abbott?
I'm going to start, and then others on our team will be in support of the presentation.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. We're going to take the first few minutes of this and give you a brief overview of the project and an update on it. And then we hope we can spend the bulk of the presentation or of our hour today discussing an item that is being introduced to the Assembly on Tuesday evening, which is requesting Assembly support for somewhat extraordinary measures to gain access to several pieces of right-of-way necessary for this project. So, and we'll talk more about that when we get to it, and that's why we have a number of people with us today, because there's a couple of different pieces of several different issues that make up this presentation today.
Before you continue with your training on the questions.
Yes.
It's an extraordinary measure. We talked about eminent domain.
Yes.
I just want to get it out of the
Yep, no, that's fine.
Great.
And you'll see that those two words will be before the body in the form of an assembly action, where we'll be requesting introduction on Tuesday night and a public hearing and assembly action on January 24th. So, anyway, so I'm here to tell you the project is funded, it is on schedule, and it is assuming that we continue to make the progress that we expect to make, including Assembly support for the actions that will be before you later this month. We will conclude the design effort, conclude the remaining approvals, and then we will bid the project this spring and construct it in 2017. So those of you who will remember that this project, the completion of the design and the construction funding was provided on the 2016 road bond, and it was kind of the headliner of that road bond. And then with a commitment that we would take steps to complete the construction in 2017, and we are on track to do that. It's going to be a complicated construction job. There's a lot of utility issues and obviously a lot of businesses that use this corridor, as well as residents and visitors. So it's a complicated construction task, but it is one that we're confident we can complete in the timeline that we've described. We've held a very robust communication effort on this project, including more than a dozen public meetings over the last almost 10 years. And there's more to follow as construction becomes imminent. I dare say it is probably the municipal project that has had as much public input and public conversation probably since the Lake Otis and Tudor intersection project of about 10 years ago. So our effort has been of that scale, and we're going to give you a little bit more information on that right now. So unless there's questions about sort of the high-level stuff, I'll ask Mr. Hanson to give you a brief description of the status of the project, refresh your memories a little bit about what we're doing and what we're not doing, And then we're gonna turn it over to our land folks that will describe the state of play with the right-of-way acquisitions and the permissions that we'll be seeking from the assembly.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. I don't see any questions, so please present.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to brief you on this project. And we do have the PowerPoint, but we're having some issues. We have some coming down so we can get it close up on the screen there, but we'll go through it. The assembly has copies of our presentation here. This project is Spenard Road from Hillcrest to 30th Avenue. A little background on this. The original project started in 1999, and it went from Chester Creek to all the way to Minnesota. It was a safety project. It was funded with the HSIP funds, federal funds, and was originally going to be administered by the DOT. Since then, the project has been split in half. It went from 30th to Chester Creek, and then the other half is from 30th to Minnesota, and nothing's happening on that second half right now. Then this portion from 30th to Chester Creek was again split into two phases. The first phase, which has been completed, was done from Hillcrest down to Chester Creek. And what we're talking about right now is what we're calling phase 2. We've gone through the design development, and there's been a Spenard Road task force that met and worked on this for several years. And in 2013, the 3-lane alternative was selected as the preferred alternative, and has gone through some issues as far as funding, but we have bond funds to pay for the construction of this section. The purpose of this project is, as I said, it started out as a safety project. It's to enhance the safety for drivers, pedestrians, bicycles, and other users of the road. We're also, by reconstructing it, we want to construct it to current municipality Anchorage minor arterial standards, and then have a 20-year life cycle on it for the design life of this project, which is standard. The purpose need, again, is to improve safety. Spenard Road has a documented history of vehicle and non-motorized crashes. We need to improve the pedestrian, bicycle, and transit facilities. Some are even minimal and non-existent. We're going to provide for the current and future capacity of the road to 2037, which is the design life of the project. And again, as I said, we're going to meet current standards, remove the pavement, curb and gutter, drainage. Storm drain in there is getting very close to failing. It's very old in there. Improve the lighting, curb cuts, sidewalks, and again, as I said, 20-year service life of the project. Some of the existing safety issues in there, as far as lack of ADA, American Disabilities Act compliant pedestrian facilities. This road was built originally in the early 1980s. There are elevated vehicle crash rates at some of the following intersections. They're very high. That's at 30th Avenue, Benson, Norlights, and 27th Avenue. There are vehicles parking, driving across the sidewalks. There's vehicles backing down directly onto Spenard Road. Right now, there's poorly delineated and protected transit facilities. We have pedestrians crossing at mid-block locations, and there's, again, 4 to non-existent, non-motorized facilities. This project, we've gone through the design and planning on this. It meets all of the current approved plans for what's been approved, the comprehensive plan, the Anchorage Metropolitan Transportation Plan, all the non-motorized plans, bike ped trails, and the West Anchorage District Plan. And the project will be designed to meet our current design's criteria standard. here's a typical section of what the proposed road would look like from, north of Northern Lights. It'll have two 11-foot lanes, one in either direction, a center turn lane. It'll have, two bike lanes on either side, and then it will have an 8-foot multi-use pathway, on this. Currently, there's 60 foot of right of way in the, this area predominantly. This is a minor class 2 arterial accident. The OSNHP is classified as that. If we were to go with the current standards as far as width of right of way, it would be 80 feet. That would be, built right now, so we're shy of right of way. As you can see, you can see here's the three, again, the existing 4-lane typical section. We got 4-lane typical section. It's got 2 lanes in either direction, 4 foot of sidewalk, and it was built within the existing 60 foot of right of way. The proposed, as I said, is 3 lanes. The width of the fully constructed improvement is going to be in excess of that 60 foot for the Northern Lights to Hillcrest section. The section between Benson and Northern Lights will be a 4-lane section with the same bike lanes and pedestrian facilities and some center turn lanes, or medians. And these, again, are not going to be able to be constructed within the existing 60 foot right of way. Some of the planned improvements, upgraded traffic signals at Fireway, Benson, and Northern Lights, with bicycle detection. This is radar. This is kind of a new concept for Anchorage. So hopefully it'll help out on that. We'll have new street lights. Again, we're going to upgrade our storm drain system for that area that's failing. We have planned for 4 parking lots, 2 of them down by the bakery. One is 27th Avenue, where we're realigning the road, and one at Photo Avenue. The overhead electric lines for CEA is going to be undergrounded between Benson and 30th Avenue. We'll have 9 upgraded bus stops, 4 with pull-outs, and there'll be corridor landscaping throughout the project. Some of the other planned safety improvements. Currently, the 27th Avenue intersection is offset. It's one of the high elevated crash rates. We're going to redo that. We've already purchased the property on the northeast corner of that. We intend to eliminate vehicles backing out on the Spenard Road. We'll have pedestrian crossing, 26th Avenue. The project is compliant with all the bicycle and transit facilities. Again, 88 compliant facilities. And some of the areas we're going to have construct raised medians to control access at those high crash rate areas. Public involvement. We have had a public involvement plan, and we followed that. There has been a citizens liaison committee that has been meeting. We have been to 3 community councils that several times, Spenard, North Star, and Turnagain. We've had numerous public meetings. We've had individual meetings with business and property owners, and then individual coordination as needed with each of the property owners. And again, we had a website. This project has been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Our design study report listing the preferred alternative was submitted and approved by them last spring, and currently we've taken the 65% design plans to the Urban Design Commission and had them approved. I wanted to point out a few things as far as the right-of-way acquisition before I turn it over to Steve Schmidt, our right-of-way acquisition supervisor on that. These are not full takes, they're sliver takes. We're only requesting the amount of property to accommodate the additional improvement with the improvements that we plan on constructing. Some additional areas are needed at intersections, transit pull-offs and improvements, and also to help construct our, that's needed for ADA compliant access for the project. And I want to turn it over to Steve Schmidt now, and he can go through the status of our right-of-way acquisition and Steve.
I'm Steve Schmidt, I'm the municipal surveyor with PME. My group is tasked with right-of-way acquisition of capital improvement projects. And so when the project design came through, a brief overall description of the project real quick right here. We have the right-of-way acquisition process where we've gone through, contacted property owners for the improvements, for the right-of-way improvements, as Jerry said, mostly for the pedestrian access and road improvements. There were a total of 62 public use easements that were required for the project, 2 temporary construction easements, and 44 temporary construction permits. Each parcel, each piece of property, there were parcel maps, legal descriptions, which were developed by Lounsbury Associates, who was our engineering contractor for this. Parking studies were also developed for each property by Lounsbury. And the planning department went through and developed letters of legal non-conformance for each property. Mostly that was in regard to parking, landscaping, things that the properties are grandfathered in currently under current code. So again, prior to the project, as Jerry mentioned, there was a lot of public involvement. When we got our acquisition contract with Travel Land Services, did the acquisition for us under contract to PME. They met multiple times, either in person, on the phone. They've been in constant contact with property owners throughout the corridor, facilitating the right-of-way acquisition process for the project. When we go through on a project, we base all of our acquisition on fair market value, which means we go get an appraisal as required on every property throughout the corridor. And that appraisal was facilitated by Blacksmith, Bethard, Carlson. They're an appraisal firm in town that's well versed on this type of project. And so every property had an appraisal done under appraisal guidelines, multiple appraisal guidelines. Throughout the process, there were a number of properties that we were in agreement with. I'll discuss those later. Essentially what happened is, due to timing, the listing of properties that were seeking approval to go forward to eminent domain on, that list was set in stone. Well, I shouldn't say set in stone, but I had to come with a list of properties as of Monday, December 20th, due to timing to submit all the paperwork to the assembly. Again, I'll discuss that here shortly, but a number of those properties have come off the list. We're hoping that by the time we actually go to the assembly, the 10th, more will be removed from that list. But I was constrained by time to submit a list of any property that we did not have in agreement at that time. So, final offer letters were sent out on December 14th. We sent 13 final offer letters to property owners that we did not have an agreement with. A decisional document was prepared by a combination of Lounsbury Associates and PME staff using the appraisals developed by Blacksmith, Bethard, Carlson, as well as the parking studies. And in order for us to go to purchasing to get the project bid in time for construction, beginning as soon as, well, I think we're planning on early May, mid-May. Anyway, we need to acquire the right-of-way before we can bid the project. And that's essentially what the constraint by time now to move towards the assembly. So, real quick, I'm going to go over the project. Essentially what happens, this intersection here is at 30th and Spenard. So north goes this way. So if you orient yourself looking to the right, So here, I'm on my car at 30th and Spenard going north, I'm crossing Benson, going Buckaroo Club, is here on the right. This is the REI Mall. Northern Lights continue north up here. And then if you take this match line and match it up over here, you around the corner, this is Fireweed, around the corner, the bakery's here, and then you Hillcrest down the hill.
John, what's that good-looking building on the right up there as I'm driving
As a
north?
matter of fact, so if your kids are into Pokemon like mine are, you'll know where that is.
We'll just have to have a full work session on that. Not too much to talk about now.
So, these colors aren't showing very well because of the light, but the darker colored parcels are public use easements, which we have acquired. The ones that are orange and the green ones are the ones that are outstanding. So if I start on the project, we refer to parcel numbers. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so the dark acquisition is complete. We're in agreement with those. The ones in orange are outstanding, and the ones in green. Ms. Ward, are you going to discuss the land exchange? Okay, so in green is the land exchange, which I'll defer to Ms. Ward on here momentarily. So the way we have this set up, if you look at your paperwork, we refer to all these pieces of property as a parcel number. That way, as an example, parcel 5, everybody may know as Dankridge, otherwise known as the old House of Hobby structure. But we refer to that as parcel 5. That way we don't have to discuss property owners, legal descriptions, all that good stuff. So the way the property was numbered is you started here, up the west side of Spenard, continued up the west side of Spenard, jumped over, back down the other side of Spenard. So the listing of final offer letters that I sent out, I'm gonna go through those real quick. The first one is parcel 5, right here, that's Dankridge. That has been removed from the list because when we're in agreement with them, we have a signed agreement, everything there is good.
So just in terms of process, Madam Chair, the document that's introduced that's before you on Tuesday, that's the one that Steve had the deadline of a couple of weeks ago. That has properties owned by 14 different people on it. We're going to submit an S version, but sometime before action on the 24th, that removes all the properties with which we've reached agreement prior to that time. What you're gonna hear Steve tell you is that 4 of the 14 are coming off the list right away. We're hopeful that there will be even more as we continue to work towards the 24th.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, parcel 5 is Dankridge, so it's right, Dankridge, that's off the list. The next property, which is submitted to you, is parcel 678, that's the REI Mall. That's coming off the list as well, we have an agreement with them. Next property up the way is parcel 13. Parcel 13 is located right here. That's, there's a marijuana operation going into that location called Light in Alaska. You know where that's the old AK Cafe on the west side of Spenard. We have not reached an agreement with that property owner for a number of reasons. And I can go into that if you'd like. If you keep going up the road and you hop over to the other side, now I'm going south on Spenard. I'm at the intersection of Hillcrest and Spenard. Parcel 46, that's owned by Suzanne Kelly. Suzanne and Michael Kelly, that's the Alaska Tad and Vine. We had a verbal agreement in place with them. I'm anticipating taking them off the list soon. Come down further, parcel 47, there's a deed problem with this parcel. The property owner's been aware of that for a long time. They failed to rectify that. So we sent final offer letters to property owners, Margaret Spills and Baxter Gamble on that, and we haven't come to an agreement on that either. The next parcel is parcel 48. That's the Denali Soap Shop. On the west piece of property is the Denali Soap Shop, and on the other side of it is a vacant property. We have not come to an agreement on that property either. The parcels in green, those are, the 3 right here is the vacant parking lot. That's owned by the bakery. And again, I'll defer to Ms. Ward on that here momentarily. And we have an agreement in place for those 3 parcels to do a land swap on this vacant lot over here. And then the parcel here on the far south end, that's a law firm, it's Kelly and Mulaney law office. They're in agreement with our project as well. So those parcels will be coming off the list. Come down to the corner of Spenard and Fireweed. This is the old 7-Eleven building owned by James Edward, and we have not come to an agreement with that gentleman either. Then next door is parcel 56A and 56B, otherwise known as the printer, so it's right next to the Coots. We have not come to an agreement with them. Come across, so now I'm going across Coots, down the road further. Come to parcel 59, that's the building with the sugar spoon in it. We haven't come to an agreement with that property owner. Continue down, so now I'm at Spenard at Northern Lights, the House of Hobbies. They're on the list because we haven't come to an agreement with them.
You have with all the Chilcoots property, I mean, anything you're skipping, you've come to agreement.
Correct. So Alaska Mountaineering and Hiking, the Buckaroo Club, Northern Bank, Chilcoots, Lomax, Brown Jug.
Mike, not to interrupt, but I've got a full list.
Okay, I mean,
So-
yes, short answer is all the other.
Surely I'm gonna talk about the really, whether the properties that we're in agreement with. So, and again, the last end of the project is now I'm at Spenard and Benson, Cache America, and next door is the Animal Kingdom. We're not gonna do anything with those two. So, again, not to interrupt Mike, but full list of properties, if I start here and I go up the project, successful, or I should say properties that we're successfully negotiated with and come to an agreement. The ski APK, the old ski shop, Old House of Hobbies, otherwise known as the Anchorage, REI Mall, Brown Jug Players Plaza, Beartooth, Spenard Center. If we're playing against forces, there's various businesses in that mall. We're in agreement there. The old Lomax, again, that's Beartooth. The Shell Station, Ray's Place, KAE Inc., which is directly across from Fireweed. That's the satellite store. We're in agreement with the bakery, Classic Italian Vine, Kelly Millennial Office, Bosco's, Warren's Off Apartments, Choke and Charlie's, AMH, North River Bank, and Buckaroo Club. So that's essentially where we are. We have a lot of positive things and a couple properties that we're still in negotiations with. And so I'd like to turn over to Ms. Ward to discuss the bakery. Okay.
A few months ago, you remember that we brought to the assembly authorization for a land exchange, and that was between, this is the property that the MOA currently owns, and these 3 lots are the bakery's properties that they're currently using for employee parking. We have reached a final agreement on environmental indemnifications for any environmental issues. That's what's been hanging us up to actually execute it. We've now reached agreement, and we will be executing that next week, and we will be trading deeds. So they will own this property then for their employee parking, and the MOA will own these 3, which we're proposing to create a parking condominium, so it'll be a condominium for parking purposes, and there would be interest dedicated to each of the properties that deserve to have parking replaced for parking that was taken during runway acquisitions. So as we get closer on that, I'll bring more information and give you a progress on our parking condominium for these 3 lots after we create these.
And one of the reasons for this landsway, again, is safety, because the employees were parking across the street and walking directly mid-block across to the bakery to go to work.
Who pays for the development, the lot across the street, the new parking?
Pardon me?
Who pays for the redevelopment or the development?
The project will pay for the development of the parking lot.
Mr. Train has a question.
Jerry, on that piece of property the baker's gonna get now, free and clear, are there restrictions on that property? You said that people are gonna, employees are gonna park there. How do we know that the baker's not gonna put a big building on there and say, go find some other place to park?
I'll defer that to.
There is no guarantee that they wouldn't in the future. As part of the project, both of these parking lots will be fully developed, paved, landscaped, totally compliant with handicap parking and so on that's required. So if they go dig up a brand new parking lot to build a building, we couldn't stop them from doing that. There are no use restrictions.
They are gonna develop that as a parking lot.
We are going to develop it as part of the project and hand it to them as a developed parking lot. So we're hoping they will continue to use it for their employees.
And there,
Wanted to know.
and there may be issues with zoning and parking requirements and further things that may restrict that too. There's other issues involved with that.
Thank you, Mr. Trainee.
Now I'd like to turn it over to Bob Owens from the Municipal Attorney's Office to go over the process for eminent domain.
Well, Many of you are probably aware, but as a home rule municipality, the Constitution of the State of Alaska and the statutes authorize the municipality to exercise eminent domain for purposes of public right of way. So the use, the nature of the use fits the statutory requirement. The question then before, the process involves the assembly then looking at the project in order to evaluate whether fundamentally it boils down to, is this project located and its use appropriate? And secondly, is it designed in such a way as to achieve maximum public good at minimum private injury? And so the information that is being provided to you at this point in time is to assist you in making that evaluation. The decisional document contains much of the information that backs up what has been, you've been told today that address those questions. But certainly if you have any questions between now and your final vote, feel free to ask questions. You're going to get a lot of information from all the interested parties. And this is sort of an administrative process where you are looking at all the information presented and deciding ultimately, does the project fulfill those requirements of maximum public interest, public good at minimum private good?
Thank you, Mr. Steele.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear about the point that was made earlier about we went out and had everything reappraised professionally. And so we're arguing value based upon that appraisal. As I understand it, the hangup is that they think there's a different value. So I just want to be clear on this.
The negotiations began with a formal professional appraisal. And we've listened to property owners along the process, trying to take into account any personal or specific concerns and impacts. And with that additional information, the offers have been modified. So we're doing, we're trying to be as reasonable as possible and address particular concerns. And that's gotten quite a bit accomplished. That's kind of how we got to it.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Mr. Trini?
Mr. Falsey, are we gonna be operating as administrative or quasi-judicial on determining eminent domain for this property? Do you know? Because I appreciate it, because our ability to accept information is predicated on what we're doing. And you know, if it's where there's, you have to have 6 of you, 2 super majority for eminent domain. We haven't done eminent domain in 15 years, arguably.
I think it's simple to do.
Would you check and make absolutely sure? Last time we did it was the Twin House Coastal College Extension. It's been a while since we've done it.
We also.
Actually, you've done it more recently than that.
When?
40th Avenue between Metros and
Okay. I stand corrected. What year was that?
2009.
That was a problem. I was off the body.
Hard to imagine that ever was the case.
What's your best name? Thank you, Mr. Trini. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so, looking at this map, it appears to me that what we're taking is probably parking lot and sidewalks right along Spenard Road. But is this going to require any demolition of existing structures of any kind?
Well, I'll defer the project engineers on that.
Well, we will be doing demolition of the existing street, sidewalks, curb and gutter. We will also be doing some demolition on property. That's why we need the temporary construction permits to transition the streetscape right up to the storefronts. And we've had that all designed so that there's a seamless aspect to the project as far as the back sidewalk, parking lot, up to the storefront. So yes, there will be some demolition on private property.
But no buildings.
But no buildings.
No buildings harmed in the making of this.
There's one building that's gonna be demolished, but that's an agreement between us and the Department of Transportation. That's at that corner of
Benson and Spenard Road, the one that sits there, next to
It's one right there.
There's a little state building at the southwest corner of Benson and Spenard, and it's been used for file storage by DOT for many years. They've emptied the building, they've agreed that it should be torn down. The community council wants to use that for potentially a community art space or something else. That could be possible. DOT will remain in control of the property and has agreed to entertain ideas from the community about how to put that to a better use.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Peterson?
That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Croft?
So just to be clear on the concept, what we're voting on is not any of these price disputes necessarily. It's whether we think the exercise of eminent domain is an appropriate public purpose and with the minimum private impact. That's our standard. And then, once we do that, there's a whole process that happens after that of negotiation or even litigation over what we took, the value of what we took.
Right, with, following a decision by the body, if it chooses to proceed with eminent domain, we have 30 days to file an action in the Superior Court, on the property that we need to acquire. And that it will likely include a declaration taking, a quick take procedure where money will be deposited into the registry report with the complaint and the declaration. And we will seek to obtain possession control as quickly as possible so that we can proceed with the work.
In simple terms, so we're taking it, we think it's an appropriate use, here's the money we think it's worth, and then there's litigation or discussion after that of maybe it's worth more.
There's two steps. One is whether the declaration taking process requirements, standards have been met.
Right.
So if that's answered affirmatively, possession and control is acquired. Then separately, we talk about how much it's worth. But once you get possession and control, you can commence the work.
Gotcha. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Croft. Mr. Duffel?
Thank you. For the offer letters that have already been accepted, are those public or private in terms of how much money we're talking about here? And at what point are you able to, or are you able to communicate sort of, in general, what sums of money we're talking about when we're talking about exercising eminent domain on those?
I don't think any of this is proprietary or confidential.
Is anyone involved in this willing to, do they know at the moment, kind of in general, what sums of money we're talking about?
We can quote you what our final offer was. That's a public information, and we can also describe to you what the most recent proposal from the property owner is. And if you're interested in that, we can provide it. It generally indicates that we're a long ways apart, and where we have one, a counter proposal or an offer from a property owner far exceeds the fair market value and or parking value that we've been able to assign to the property.
Can you give me an example? Does anyone have that in front of them when one of these has been accepted?
Please.
The general example is our appraisal, fair market value on a particular property came back and said that we are impacting this property $12,000. We also determined that there was an additional impact to parking. So we determined that there was 3 parking spaces that we were impacting. We valued each parking space at $30,000. So essentially, I'm sorry, 10,000 apiece, 30,000 total. So our offer, our adjusted offer to the property owner was approximately $45,000. They came back and they wanted $150,000. And if they came back and they were able to point where we were in error or something where our valuation was off, then we would look at that. But I have no idea where they came up with the number, but essentially that's where we're between 45 and 150, and we rejected that counter.
And you said, how many of these there were? Again, there were 14 that hadn't agreed, in total there were?
There are 14 that are on your list.
Right.
4 will be removed as
Okay.
soon as we give you an S version. We're hopeful that there will be at least 2 others, and in fact, one of those may already be locked in. So it's likely that there will be 8 or less ultimately.
No, but I'm saying, so the ones that hadn't agreed plus the ones that did agree before, total was like 30 or
So
40
total
properties.
project,
62, I think. is correct.
62, and we're talking tens of thousands of dollars each.
Oh, yeah.
You want the total land acquisition
Well,
price?
it's just interesting to me, so we're talking about potentially hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars to acquire these little strips of land along this road.
Yeah, what is,
The, as a ballpark figure, we're looking at somewhere around 2.5 to 3 million.
Just one comment that I have to make, but, this eminent domain and the cost to acquire properties is all part of the project cost.
oh, yeah, no, this
Yeah.
is.
I just wanted to
totally
make that
unaccounted
point,
for
so it's
and-
nothing,
Yeah.
I knew that, but I wanted to make the point.
For future reference, if we ever decide to do something like this in the future.
Thank you,
What's that?
Mr. Dunbar. Mr. Trainee?
Madam Chair, do we have any big public that's here that's impacted by this? That's anything they want to say? We've heard from the experts, but I want to hear from the public that's here.
Is anyone here? Mr. Trainee, would like for you to make a comment?
Sure. My name is Baxter Gamble, and I own 3 pieces of property in the affected area. The project's been going on for a long time. It was first touted as a safety project, but there was never any data to show where the safety problem really was. There was never any emphasis put on extra APD controls, reducing speed limits, or anything like that. The whole project has kind of gone to a Santa Barbara look of a road, is what we're looking at. So, what they're doing, and they specifically noted Northern Lights and Benson as being very problematic areas. There's really nothing changing at those intersections. Those intersections, traffic accident statistics provided by the state and by APD shows that that's people that run through red lights. So and there's no change there to those 4 lanes and the traffic that goes through there. So I've got a property at Fireweed and Spenard on Spenard right there at the corner, the printer and the old 7-Eleven building next to it. So in front of my building, I have 5 parking spaces. So the proposal from the city is to eliminate 2 of those parking spaces, 5 to 3, and make it angle parking. So my property is 50 feet wide, and they want to take about 18 feet off of the front of it out of the roughly 40 feet that's there. So by doing so, the engineers have somehow decided that by angle parking into a little small place like that, you can get out and get back on the road. So right now, there's an access agreement between the 2 properties there. But we brought vehicles in and parked there in the parking lots and showed that you can't get through one parking lot to the other to traverse that, to get out without backing into Spenard Road. So it's actually making it worse. I have another property across from the bakery up there where there's next to the old pizza place and the Denali Dreams, it's got the vacuum flow place in there. So they want to basically take property right to my front door and then have my customers, my tenants' customers park over in those green marked spots. So if you tell mama that's pregnant and pushing a stroller in February, go walk a block or half a block, I'm not gonna do it. The city's proposal so far has been to take those green parking spots and make it into a co-op type parking condition where myself and other landowners would be owners of the property. We would have to establish a corporation, have minutes, have bylaws, control who parks there, how we park there, the maintenance on it, and everything else. I just don't see the need for that. My tenant has told me that they'll move out. So if I lose my tenant with no parking, I'm not gonna have any better luck getting somebody else in there that doesn't need parking. They've been there about 18 years. There's a lot of concerns I have about this, and my main concern is the safety. Being there for almost 30 years, I see the concerns, but I don't see the accidents. I don't see the safety problems. If we have a problem, then I think we need to lower some speed limits. We need some enforcement in there. But the city so far has not been able to show anything where there's a demonstrated high number of accidents. If there has been, why haven't they acted in some way to work on reducing that? This project's been in work for well over, what, close to 30 years, 20-something years now, and there's nothing that's been done? That seems very, I hate to use the word irresponsible, but if it's a safety problem, then maybe irresponsible is the right term on that.
Thank you, sir. Mr.
Thank you.
Payne has a question.
You were saying, one last thing, you were saying your business is gonna walk right onto the road? I mean, there's gonna be no front to your business other than the high.
That's true. We'll have to change the door so it opens in, I think.
What, 45-mile-an-hour traffic?
Pretty much.
We had the same problem on Lake Otis years ago, people are gonna have to come out with 50-mile-an-hour traffic.
That's the problem. So the landscaping we have on, at Fireweed and Spenard, you know, when I want to do something there, I was required to put in landscaping buffer. But now, since they want to take property, they say, no, you don't need any landscaping there. So now my edge of my parking area will be right adjacent to the sidewalk, so there's no buffer at all there. So I don't know where snow would go, where people are gonna throw their trash, you know, that sort of thing. So I just don't think that it's real well thought out. There's a raised divider in front of my printer business, which will prevent southbound traffic from turning into my business completely.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Brief, make it brief.
I will.
Thank you.
I've been involved in the past in takes from liquid buildings, and what should have been done is the building should have been taken in total. In this case, some of these buildings, instead of, I take a part of the parking, the whole building should just go away. And you can look around Anchorage in many, many places, like the Lake Otis, and also Lake Otis between 15th and Northern Lights. That first row of buildings should have been taken when they, years ago. So you're going to do a disservice to Anchorage if you leave some of these buildings. They should just be taken in total instead of a solution that is not going to benefit the city, the public, or the owner. So you're really doing a disservice to everybody if you leave a building, like the building at 30th and Northern Lights or Benson. The Spenard Community Council has been involved for 30-some years in trying to get that building taken away. It was supposed to have been taken away when Benson was built, and then the state decided, hey, maybe we can use this. And it's caused a traffic problem for all of those years, and it's finally gonna go away. So let's do the right thing by the city, the residents, and the building owners. And when it's necessary, take the whole building and demolish it so that we don't have to solve this problem 10 years from now, 20 years from now, or further down.
Thank you very much. I think there's one other person who wanted to make comments.
What's your business, sir? I'm sorry. Oh.
Please continue with the presentation.
The only thing we had as a final on this is our schedule, that we're looking at going to purchasing around in May to advertise so that we can start construction early part of latter part of May, early part of June. And the intent is we'll get the majority of the work done in one construction season to disrupt the traffic as little as possible. I mean, businesses and the traveling public for one season. With hopefully just some landscaping, that type of work in the follow-up season.
Thank you. And the document that we're gonna have, is it resolution or executive? I guess my real question is this, because I can't remember if eminent domain requires a public hearing.
It does require a public.
Okay, I thought so.
So,
anyway,
it's been-
there'll be a public hearing on this, yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Anything else, any other questions, Mr. Steele?
I had a couple clarifications that I wanted to get from folks. First one was a comment. You talked about the original the first project, down to the creek. But that bridge never got replaced and it floods over. So that bridge ultimately is gonna have to be pickup work on Spenard Road at some point. The Spenard Road Bridge across Chester Creek. There's a walkway bridge there that's about 8, 10 inches higher. That works, but, and I think it was in the paper that I saw underground the electrical from Benson to 30th, is that correct?
Yes.
That's good, that's good. Does that mean you're gonna continue that, as you go up in the next phase of Spenard Road?
I mean, south of that.
You mean south of
South of
30th?
that,
South of
yes.
30th.
That's yet to be determined.
Has the Spenard Community Council seen your latest drawings, the conclusions that you came to? Or not, Community Council, the Spenard Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, they, presentation was given to them, I can't remember the exact date, it was actually right between the design study report and the 65% design study. But
So they haven't seen your latest drawings or
we're at the 95% design level right now.
They've seen this level
Oh, yeah.
of design.
Oh, okay.
There's nothing that would be of material interest to a community council after 65%. At that point, you're just talking about sharpening the pencils.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Mr. Middleton?
So what happens if the vote is no?
We wouldn't build in 2017. We'd have to, we would evaluate whether we could redesign the project without that right-of-way and what that would look like. So probably 60, 90 days later, we'd bring you back a recommendation, but nothing would happen in 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Middleton. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, we're told that you're gonna be reconstructing Spenard Road to the current minor arterial standards. What is the capacity of a minor arterial, and what is the current capacity?
So a minor arterial typically has between 10,000 and 20,000 vehicles a day, which fits this profile of roadway. With the exception of the section between Fireview and Hillcrest, the traffic volume there is around 6,000 vehicles a day, so it's a little less than a typical minor arterial.
And so after construction, you're gonna be able to still handle, you're gonna be able to
Yes.
handle that much traffic
Yes.
after, because we're
Yeah,
reducing
we're
the
currently
3 lane.
moving, I think it's about 10,000
10 to 15,000.
from Benson to Fireweed. And that will be able to continue to maintain that, and the design as proposed would handle greater volumes as well, should that take place.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Any other questions, Mr. Steele?
Yeah, just in terms of traffic volume, when the Beartooth lets out, in terms of the theater, that's the big issue, and I hope the realignment of that 27 is going to help that. And I did notice that you do have 4 lanes in there, so that folks can get out of 27 in front of Beartooth to make a turn. And that's a good fix. The other major time when traffic is backed up there is down on Hillcrest is school early in the morning and to a lesser extent later. So they're peaking times, and I suspect there's still gonna be stuff this morning.
I don't go through the streets like that in the intersection. I go through the Burger King parking lot. Makes it a lot easier.
Anything else? I just have one comment. I think this presentation was excellent. very thorough. I mean, during my tenure, I don't ever remember being an art or being this thorough. I appreciate all things very much. No other comments or questions? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Madam Chair.